We'll reconvene at open session. So first is our land acknowledgement. We recognize that the Mount Diablo Unified School District sits on the territory of the Federated Villages of Loshan, the ancestral and unceded land of the Baby-Walk and Northern Yokut, the successors of the sovereign Rona Band of Contra Costa County. As members of the MUSD community, it is vitally important that we not only recognize the history of the land on which we learn, but also we recognize the land we inhabit and learn on is the ancestral land of these people who are alive and flourishing members of MUSD and broader Bay Area communities today. We may stand for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Then we move to 6.3, review and potential approval of minutes for the regular board meeting held August 28, 2024.
Madam President, I move the board approve the minutes for August 28, 2024.
I'll second that. Thank you. Motion by trustee Mayo and a second by trustee Mason. Trustee Ochoa, how do you vote?
Yes.
That motion passes 5-0 with concurrence from our student board member. So we move to 6.4, review and potential approval of the agenda for the meeting. Are there any changes that need to be made?
no change, Madam President.
I move that we accept the agenda as presented. Second.
Motion by trustee Mason and a second by trustee Mayo. Trustee Ochoa, how do you vote?
Yes.
That motion passes 5-0 with concurrence from our student board member. So we move on to the report out of action taken in closed session. For 7.1, negotiations. The board may discuss negotiations or provide direction to its representatives regarding represented employees, government code section 54957.6. The board received information on this item. For 7.2, discipline, dismissal, release, or reassignment of public employee, government code section 54957B1. The board received information on this item. For 7.3, public employee performance evaluation, superintendent, pursuant to government code section 54957, the board received information. And then last for 7.4, the board, and this is liability claims, government code 54956.95, name of claimant Kristen and Armando Diaz, name of agency at which the claim is made, Mount Diablo Unified School District. The board met in closed session and by a vote of 5-0 voted to reject a liability claim for damages pursuant to government code section 54956.95 by Kristen and Armando Diaz against the Mount Diablo Unified School District. And so that was closed session. We move to public comment. So at this point in the meeting, the public may address the board regarding any item that is not on the agenda for this evening. Public comment will also be allowed on each specific agenda item prior to board action thereon. Okay, so it looks like we have about 7 people comments. I think that we can probably do the full 3 minutes tonight. But if these are kind of on similar items, and if someone makes a point, kind of something that you were going to say, if you could just try to add something new instead of repeating an idea, that would be really probably the best use of the time. Okay, so first up is Doug Scott.
Good evening, board members. My name's Doug Scott, and I just wanted to put
Can you use the microphone, please?
Yeah, sure. Is that right? I just wanted to put a face behind the name that you end up hearing. I'm a teacher and feel I was pressured to change a grade and didn't, and The result was a complaint that been placed on administrative leave ever since. And I just wanted to give you an idea. I wanted to put a face behind the name that you may end up hearing about me. I'm a product of this district. I went to Walnut Acres Elementary, Foothill Junior High, graduated from Northgate, went to Humboldt State, fell in love with nature, brought that passion back down to this district, and have been teaching at College Park ever since for the last 34 years. But I also have a disability, and I'm smart, but I have a disability, and it's a horrible thing it's a horrible feeling to have to publicly disclose that and admit that you need help and don't know who to ask. I've tried for a long time to make a lot of different efforts to get help and seem to keep running up against an instinctive intolerance to it. My disability is seen as a character flaw, and instead of helping, I feel punished. And I just wanted to present myself and ask that you consider helping me as an alternative to any other option that you have in front of you. I did want to add a really quick thing. I've been on paid administrative leave, and I try to teach good citizenship. So we talked about October breast cancer awareness, and February Black History, and September suicide prevention, but also the great sacrifices made by great people that we honor on Martin Luther King Day or Memorial Day, or events like what happened 23 years ago today to the crew and passengers of Flight 93. And in that spirit, what I had planned this November for Veterans Day is, I love history. For Memorial Day, we talked about Normandy, the most incredible invasion in history. There's one survivor left who stormed the Omaha beaches on Earth. He's 101 years old, and he lives in Martinez, California, and is a friend of a former student. I've met him, we've talked, and he was willing to come in Veterans Day and talk to my class. And that's a once in a lifetime, one of a kind opportunity that I'm really hoping to be able to accomplish. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Stephanie Stensvold.
Hello. I, like Mr. Scott, am a product of not Diablo USD School District. I wasn't lucky enough to be in one of his classes. I went to Clayton Valley High School, but I've known several people who have been in his classes and speak nothing but his praises. That although he is fun and creative, that he's also nothing but fair and equitable and supportive of the people in his classrooms.
Thank you. Patrick Stokes.
Thank you. I'll try to keep this brief. I was also a student of Mr. Scott in 2004, and I think it's the fact that I'm here 20 years later to speak on his behalf should mean a lot. He was a teacher that made a huge impact on me. His passion for what he taught and his care for his students was unmatched, and I think that the world needs more teachers like Mr. Scott, not less. So any considerations you can make would be appreciated by me and his future students as well. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Claire Ortega Flores.
Hello, like everyone who's spoken before me, was also a product of the MAUSD district. I was here since Valley, College Park, and now I'm contracted to work with you all. Mr. Scott was one of the teachers who helped me fresh off from my freshman year. I had a very difficult freshman year having police gigs. He was constantly supportive, always let me have breaks if I just needed a breather in class or was having a particularly hard day. Unlike a lot of teachers, he gives you that kind of reassurance that makes you want to be able to speak to him, be able to disclose things that can be a little bit more uncomfortable or hard to talk about. A lot of people signed the petition. Currently, there are 85 who signed the petition to reinstate Mr. Scott. All of these can come from Oakland to Martinez to Brentwood, Oakley. I've seen a few from San Jose, Danville, Cedar City, as well as Ravensburg, Concord, Martinez, as well as just a lot of cities around us. There are many people that could unfortunately not be here due to us just going to a different, school now in university. But even so, a lot of people do want to have the support of Mr. Scott. A lot of students still remember his very particular lessons. Like he says, he's very, very passionate about certain things, depending from Memorial Day, Martin Luther King Day, to things and events that happened a couple of years ago, 23 years ago after 9/11. Communities best enough time to just read a few of them because unfortunately a lot of people can't today. From Matthew Sese, Mr. Scott taught me right before the pandemic. He was the kindest teacher I've known. He loved every aspect of life so much, including the students' needs. This only makes trouble for a good man that is dedicated to his study because he loves it. D. I worked with Mr. Scott at College Park. Students in the class were excited about sharing lessons they had learned. As a colleague, Teddy was inspirational in his approach of teaching science that students could use in their daily lives. I don't understand why he's constantly hassled. A student who doesn't do work doesn't deserve a grade better than earned. Let that do and go back to what he does best, educating students for his future. Another one from Margaret Eduardo. Scott was my biology teacher at College Park in 2005. I'm confused by his accusations and his lessons that regularly had the Star Trek theme, he is a fan, of ignoring the imaginary lines that divide us, and instead using our knowledge of science to make choices that will benefit everyone. We're all connected, planet Earth. Every day is Earth Day. Another one from Linda. The school board should be complimenting Doug Scott for his ethical approach to teaching, not firing him for refusing to alter grades after visible pressure him.
Thank you for your comment. Of course. Matthew Patton.
As with everybody else, I was a product of the MD USD districts. And as with most other speakers, my heart was touched by Mr. Scott through the way he taught and just his love of the subjects that he taught us. I still remember him being the very first teacher I ever had way back in 2013. As a freshman, my very first class at College Park. I also remember though, just shy of 5 years ago, standing in front of many of you here, the last time allegations were brought against Mr. Scott, because he was one of the only teachers who had the integrity to stand up and refuse to change a grade when it was demanded. Though the board members here may not know it this time around, the district is once again coming for him because he's refused to change a grade that was not deserved. Last time he was punished both for his disability and for reporting Alvarez, who had came for him after he refused to change multiple grades he demanded. This time around, new allegations are brought up again because he will not change somebody's grade just because they want him to. He teaches with all of his heart, and he is an amazing teacher. As you can see, so many of us who haven't even been in his class for decades now, we still love him, we still support him, And he was one of the best teachers we've ever had. Robbing College Park of Mr. Scott is an embarrassment to the district and an embarrassment to the school.
Thank you. Chris Dempsey.
So, yeah, I'm also a product of the Mount Diablo School District. I've known Mr. Scott over about 35 years. Never been in any of his classes, but a lot of conversations I've had with him. He's really shown me the passion and the knowledge of all different types of subjects, and it really brings you in to the subject matter and makes you really care about it. And that type of passion is something I think more teachers need, and the integrity he has to stand up to the district for the second time now for basically doing the right thing. It's a travesty that he's even being put in this position again. So I do appreciate you guys considering that, and if he does need help with a condition that he's disclosed to you guys, I think the next step would be to give him that help and get him reinstated ASAP, because the students going forward really need these type of teachers. They don't need teachers that are just gonna follow the book and do exactly what it said, because that passion and that extra drive and the way he really brings all these subjects to life and really draws the kids in is something that we need more of, because kids are very hard to keep their attention these days. And teachers like Doug are the ones that we need to really get the students involved and keep them learning and keep them excited about the subject matter. Thank you.
Thank you. And last is Carol Powell.
Thank you for your time. I too graduated from Northgate with Doug. He's 2 years behind me, but we went to school together. And 23 years later, he ends up being my neighbor. I live across the street from Doug. Doug's an honorable person. He's an honest person, and his brain is not wired to be unfair. He cannot be unfair. He's just not wired that way. Doug's very passionate about teaching. I have loaned him clippers so that he can go hiking and clip off the leaves to take to his students to show them. I have tried to find school supplies during COVID. I was buying Doug hand sanitizer, but he couldn't find it. He's a great guy. He's a very passionate teacher. He does a very good job at what he does. And I hope that you guys do a thorough investigation before you make your decision. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, that moves us to communications. Do we have any speakers this evening for this item? This is district organizations at regular board meetings, a single spokesperson of each recognized district organization. They make a brief presentation. Items are limited to those which are information. Linda Ortega.
Good afternoon, trustees, Dr. Clark, members of the audience, and those who are watching. I am here this evening to give my report on how things are going with my Diablo members. Our members and I are still waiting for an update on where the district is on adjusting the thermostats throughout the district. We have classrooms that are reaching 85 degrees. And then we have classrooms and workspaces that are at 60 degrees. So we have both sides, freezing and hot. Some of my members have reported to me that they and their students have now been going home with headaches. They're concerned about medical conditions. I just want to bring that to your attention. And Dr. Clark, I am still waiting for an update from M&O with the list of which thermostats are being controlled by the district and which sites are being still needing adjustments. So I'm giving you a heads up that I will be submitting a data request form for this information. Last month, I reported that I was pleased that our classrooms were staffed for the upcoming school year.
And I had added that I was concerned that our members will not be receiving the support they need once they are in their classroom. I also said that our teachers have choices. Well, as it so happens, there have been teachers who have elected to leave this district because they felt like they did not receive the support that they were promised, which didn't leave the classroom without a teacher. I have also heard that when a teacher does not reach out to an admin, when a teacher does reach out to an admin, which is a site principal, for help, they do not receive the help they needed. Instead, they are called into their office and treated as if they, the teacher, did something wrong. What I will not tolerate is our members being bullied or intimidated to keep quiet, or been told you cannot call the union. Why are you calling the union? That is their legal right to contact us. I am working closely with your HR and other directors to resolve these issues. That is what we promise, and that's my promise. Dr. Clark, you and I have had conversations. You've offered for me to come and talk to you about this, and I will. Thank you. Again, our teachers have choices. They are leaving this district. They do not get the support they need. Finally, Trustee McFerrin, I have a new problem. This one's for you. According to your district's unaudited actuals, that were just published, the district has $199,975,988.71. So for those who know rounding up, let's round it up to $200 million. Okay, you wanted to share? That's a lot of zeros. I just want to remind everybody, MDUSD is not a for-profit organization, nor is it a bank. This amount of money in reserves is important to spend on our students now. Medea is willing to help you look for ways to invest in our students' future. So, as the Medea president, I am so looking forward to our next bargaining session. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ortega. All right, so we move to recognitions and resolutions. Dr. Clark?
Yes, Madam President, I have before you resolution 24/25-13, designating the Phoenix as Olympic High School mascot. I'm going to read the resolution and then we're going to do a short presentation. That sound okay? All right. Whereas Olympic High School has proudly served as a cornerstone of the Mount Diablo Unified School District since 1975, fostering a unique and resilient culture, yet has not had a unifying mascot to represent its spirit and values. So whereas the students and staff at Olympic High School have thoughtfully engaged in the mascot selection process, choosing the Phoenix as their symbol, a representation of hope, renewal, and perseverance, perfectly reflecting our commitment to second chances and the transformative power of education. And now therefore be it resolved that the Mount Diablo Unified School District accept the student selection of the Phoenix as the mascot of Olympic High School. Madam President, I would like to present you with Courtney Lyon, the principal, and her team will be doing a brief presentation on this topic.
Good evening. One of our team members is up there with you. Good evening, board members, Dr. Clark. Thank you for the opportunity to be here with you all. We know that a school mascot represents more than just a symbol. It embodies the spirit, pride, and unity of our school community. And for that reason, we are excited to present our proposal for adopting a new school mascot. Okay, so we, just briefly, you know, our LCAP goals, we placed them there for you. There are many parts of our LCAP goals that are applicable to our students and our site, particularly our new LCAP goal number 5, which we are working diligently to address. But we know that fostering a sense of community and belonging is really important for our students. And so that's something that we'll need to address today. So today we're going to talk briefly about why we want to adopt our mascot, our timeline, kind of the process through which we went, and then rebranding of Olympic High School and some things that we'd like to see on campus for our students. So the origin of our mascot, you know, I've seen multiple versions of this, iterations of this since I started at Olympic. Currently, there are various generic versions of the Olympic torch, different symbols that you can Google, and you know, any one of those could have been used at any time. And then documents have also displayed different versions of the Olympic ring. So it just kind of depends on who pushes out the document. So we do not have an official mascot, and we don't believe that the torch fully represents our student body. There's a lack of pride. Students don't really know what it is, and so we wanted to come up with something powerful and something that was organic from our community. And you know, I hope this goes without saying, but we pride ourselves on the unique type of support and the high level of support that we provide our students. And we wanted something that demonstrated and represented that resilience and that tenacity of our community. So I just put the 2 board resolutions up there that just to kind of reiterate that it's something that we were very mindful of throughout the process. You know, involving students in this process is a learning opportunity. And so Scott here with his leadership team did a very a thoughtful job of walking students through, like, why do we have a mascot? What is the purpose? And what does this kind of democratic process look like?
I'll take over, not just the clicker guy. Good evening, I'm Scott Anatos, the leadership teacher at Olympic High School. We started this back in January, where the leadership class for several weeks researched mascots. We went over troubling mascots, especially in recent history. And then I set them off on a research project to figure out a potential new mascot for the school. They focused strongly on ties to the term Olympic. So a lot of mythology, they had a lot of great ideas, some of them not great. So we did have a staff oversight committee. One of their favorites was the Minotaur, which was really cool, but probably a little bit too violent. So we pared it down to some acceptable options. We set up a timeline. We've almost stuck to it. We've been pretty close. It's September, right? We're perfect, yeah. We met with the student advisory committee, came up with a final list. We moved to a vote of the entire school. The 3 leading candidates at the time were the Pegasus, Unicorn, and Phoenix, but we also wanted to give all students a voice. So we did have an other category, which gave us a huge list of potential candidates. We then took that to our staff. We used this data to come up with some new ideas and focus on a few that many supported. We also sent out a parent square to the community, trying to gather some feedback, which we didn't get a lot of, mostly just support for the idea of a mascot in general. Our final vote came in March with a closed vote, including the Pegasus, Phoenix, Lions, Torch, and the Owls. And of course, the Phoenix carried the day again.
So, okay, thank you. So we're here to kind of talk about too, like, one of the great parts of a school is the aesthetic, right? You want to walk on campus and you want to feel pride in your space to learn. And so we're hoping to, with the adoption of the new mascot, make some changes and do some lifts around our campus. So one of the great things about Olympic is we ebb and flow with our students. We go where they go, and then we pivot and we're moving over here. That being said, we have created a lot of various programs to serve the unique needs of our students. And so the signage that we have around campus, it just doesn't match the programs that we have there anymore. So people will walk onto campus and they'll say, oh, I'm here for, and oh, that's not the space anymore. And so those are some of the offices and the spaces around campus. And then we're hoping to add some murals. That Mount Diablo High School has that beautiful mural in the quad. And so we're hoping to add some murals and some color around campus. And ideally, we would also love an electronic message board. That's a dream. But then also, we are hoping to, I know Trustee Mason's been on the Olympic campus at lunch, and it is vibrant and it is lively, and you know, there's music and there's games and kids are moving and grooving. So we thought a mascot costume would be really fun. I think the kids would enjoy and line up to volunteer to hold that position. So finally, we would like to remove all of the branding of the torch logos and affiliated imagery and language and officially adopt the Phoenix as our mascot. And really briefly, I just want to point out that we went through and we worked with the same the group of folks who did the rebranding at Ignacio Valley and at Concord High. We wanted something really professional. And so we went through many iterations. You can see this is our first draft of the Phoenix. I know we talked about, does it look like it's rising? Does it look like a rebirth? Is it fiery enough? You know, all those things that, or too fiery. And then the second version, you could see got a little more fiery. The third version, I think the only edit we wanted was that the head was maybe tilted up so that it represented something rising. And so here are our final mascot designs. We have our initials mark, we have our mascot, our primary mark, and our primary word mark. And we're really proud to put that on things that represent Olympic. Thank you.
Is that it right there?
That's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And this is these are all, they give you 4 marks, so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any questions? What questions or comments do we have? Any discussion on this?
I would just like to say, I just really appreciate how with each of the things that your school has brought to us recently has had such a community process to it, where it really is not just about the end goal of let's choose this thing, but really it's about bringing people together, getting that sense of community and taking the time to really go through that over, you know, you didn't just do this yesterday, right? And so I just really appreciate that about everything that you've been doing lately. And I think we can see the results. It's really beautiful. And I think it really represents the types of things that you as a community have been talking about at your school. So well done.
I just want to also just share some enthusiasm and just say that there's so much to do on a high school campus. And so to take this on and to get so much input really from everyone at the school, especially students, teachers, et cetera. I know it's just a huge lift. And just like, you know, obviously as a high school teacher, as a former leadership teacher, as an English teacher, the symbolism of it is so beautiful. And I'm really excited. So I just really want to thank you for doing this work. It's really, really important for students.
I love, I echo everything that my colleagues have said, and yeah, I echo everything somewhat repeated, but I love the symbolism because as we've heard Trustee Ochoa's journey to and through Olympic, I feel like it's the perfect symbol of just the Phoenix rising. And I'm like, so if you do get a costume, like then you have to name the Phoenix. That person, that Phoenix has to have a name. So curious if you have a name for the Phoenix yet, or I look forward to learning the name of your Phoenix. Yeah, so thank you so much.
We'll bring it back.
Yeah, well, I just want to know what it is and then logo wear and stuff, so that's great. Trustee Ochoa, did you go, did you go to the Lions?
I wanted for the Phoenix, I like how they included all the students and didn't just go ahead and do it themselves.
So we do need a motion from someone.
I move to approve resolution 4/24/25/13, discussing the Phoenix as student mascot for Olympic High School.
I'll second that. It's a motion from Trustee Ochoa and a second from Trustee Mason. Trustee Ochoa, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes 5-0.
Exciting. All right, Madam President, I have item 10.2. Review and potential approval of resolution 24/25-14, adopting and approving the master intergovernmental cooperative purchasing agreement to Omnia Partner. This is not quite as exciting as the mascot. But, I'll just read a couple lines here, but I don't really don't want to bore people with this, but whereas California Public Contract Code allows public agencies to piggyback for equipment, materials, supplies, vehicles, and personal property. The governing board of any school district, without advertising for bids, if the board has determined it to be in the best interest of the district, may authorize by contract, lease, requisition, or purchase order any public corporation or agency, including any county, city, state, or district, to lease data processing equipment, purchase materials, supplies, equipment, automotive vehicles, tractors, and other personal property for the district in the manner in which the public corporation or agency is authorized by law to make the leases or purchases from the vendor. It goes on, but Madam President, I think this is the board.
I'm ready to make a motion. I move the board approve resolution 24/25-14, authorizing the district's membership with Omnia Partners Cooperative through the approval of a master intergovernmental cooperative purchasing agreement effective September 12, 2024.
I'll second that. Motion by trustee Mayo and a second by trustee Mason. Trustee Ochoa, how do you vote?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0 with concurrence from our student board member.
Madam President, our next two, resolutions, item 10.3 and 10.4 will be addressed by, Dr. Rubio. Dr. Rubio.
Good evening, board members, superintendent. Thank you. Before you, I have a resolution for your review and potential approval. The California Commission on Teaching Credentialing does provide applicants the opportunity to have additional time to complete their subject matter competence. And we have one employee where we are requesting that additional time.
Make a motion to approve resolution 24/25-15, provisional internship permits.
Second.
Motion by trustee Mason and a second by trustee Nzeri. Trustee Ochoa, how do you vote?
Yes.
That motion passes 5-0 with concurrence from our student board member.
Great, thank you. The next item, 10.4, very similarly provides applicants variable term waivers with additional time to complete certain requirements for their credential. We have two employees where we are requesting.
Madam President, I move to approve resolution 24/25-16, variable term waivers.
Second.
Motion by trustee Count and a second by trustee Nzeri. Trustee Ochoa, how do you vote?
Yes.
That motion passes 5-0 with concurrence from our student board member.
Great, thank you. The next item, item 11.1, we have before you tonight a personnel appointment for a new technology user support manager. And I'd like to say a few things, if I could first, about Mr. Eric Stevens. Mr. Stevens began his career in education as an art and drill teacher at a local daycare in Louisiana. While still a sophomore in high school, he began working as a computer technician for the Morehouse Parish School District. He has worked for our district for almost 11 years, progressing through multiple positions and holds a bachelor's degree in business information systems. I'm happy to have this appointment before you. I know that Mr. Stevens has a wife, Mercedes, who they've been married for 10 years. They have a son named Eric, or Eric Jr. And so I have this appointment before you this evening for your review.
Madam President, I move to approve Eric Stevens as technology user support manager.
Second.
Motion by trustee Count and a second by trustee Nzeri. Trustee Ochoa, how do you vote?
Yes.
Words?
Why, sure. I'm used to being on the other side over here, so it's a little different.
Good to see you.
So yes, I first of all, to the board and to Dr. Clark, I thank you for this appointment. As said, I am from Louisiana where I started in technology as a sophomore in high school. So I was being paid by the school district to be a tech, even then. So I've had some years of education, and technology. But I thank you for the appointment. I do want to introduce my lovely wife. They didn't read it all, but I don't know how I got her to change her name from Duffy to Stevens, but it happened. So, but there's my wife, Mercedes, and my 7-year-old son, Eric. We do, like I said before, I do thank you all for the appointment and have a good day.
Congratulations on your family that's standing behind you, but I just wanted you to know, you have a lovely family, and they look so proud of you.
You can escape now if you like. Stick around.
School night. Okay, so we move to board member reports. I don't remember where I started last time. I probably did. Thank you. Trustee Ochoa, do you have a report this evening, and would you like to go first?
Yes, of course. I held a focus group with all students from Olympic to gather their feedback. I began by introducing myself and explaining my new role, as well as the purpose of the meeting. I told the students they could share their thoughts whenever they felt comfortable. First, I asked them about aspects of the previous schools that they missed that Olympic currently lacks. Several students mentioned missing school rallies, sports programs, and electives courses like workshop and cooking classes. I also asked about the types of sports they would like to see offered at Olympics. Next, I asked about the changes they would like to see at Olympic. Students expressed interest in private bathrooms and incentives like DoorDash. They also brought up the need for better food opinions, which I would like to advocate for because Olympic lacks a working kitchen like other high schools. Fresh food is a priority for us too. I asked the students what they enjoyed about Olympic. Many students said they liked how safe it feels at school and pointed out that there are no fights. They also shared that teachers and staff are supportive, understanding, and constantly work to help them succeed. When students miss school, teachers notice and make an effort to get them back on track. I was really nervous to do this at first, but once I started, I really enjoyed getting back the feedback. And I was proud of myself for putting myself out there. I also presented this information from the focus group to Olympic staff at their monthly meeting. I would really like a chance to do this at other high schools and schools in the district to get more students feedback. Thank you.
Excellent report, thank you. Trustee Cal, do you have anything tonight?
I don't know how to follow that. That was really great, and I look forward to seeing what you learn at the other high schools as well. I think that's a really great idea. Wonderful. I am just basically looking forward to the parent conference that's coming up on September 28th. I was just talking to someone from a group called Bright Life Kids, a representative who said that she is already in touch with the organizers of that conference and will be one of the workshops. And Bright Life Kids, along with Saluna, it's one of those free options that's provided by the state of California starting this year. And it's brightlife.kids/CA. It provides for free for kids ages 0 to 12, expert coaching for any kind of issues that you might have, live one-on-one video sessions. And I think they have it in they definitely have it in English and Spanish, but then they also have translators in 18 of them. So really excited to see that.
All right, thank you. Let's see. Trustee Mason, do you have a report this evening?
Very short one. All that Trustee and Zay, we talked more about the Black families this evening, which I went to enjoy very much. And then just anybody who's listening out there, Supervisor Federal Lovers Youth Conference is coming up September 21st at Alamos College, and you can contact his office if you want to register.
Trustee Mayo, do you have a report this evening?
Yes, thank you. I attended the Black Family event host previously, and we listened to trustee and Zaylee state, which was really great. I wanted to mention that on, or remind all of us that on September 8th, 1954, little Ruby Bridges was escorted to school, the first African-American child to integrate a white school in the South. This is just one of many courageous steps in the journey of civil rights. And it just touched me, especially this year when I saw all the pictures on Facebook. And today we hold in our hearts the memory of those who died on 9/11. And we salute the heroes who acted with extraordinary bravery. As a nation and a community, we must come together in unity and hope. There were many little known events that occurred on that day. And one of the greatest in my mind is that the public schools assured the safety of Manhattan's public school students as teachers and administrators. Some students and staff remained at their schools. Some walked miles to nearby colleges or public places. Some were bused, but not one student was lost or injured on that chaotic day. And that's just shows the value and importance of the work that public school does and accomplishes. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get emotional. And this memory is forever etched in our minds. Students and immigrants in Mount Diablo school districts were very fearful in the days and weeks that followed 9/11 and the months as well. Our teachers and our staff members spent many hours supporting our students and one another. And I want to thank everyone in Mount Diablo School District for their efforts about this situation. Thank you.
Thank you for your especially thoughtful comments, trustee Mayo. Trustee Nzegi, do you have a report?
And Ruby Bridges turned 70 this week. So it wasn't that long ago. Yes, thank you. You all haven't had a diatribe from me in a long time. Famous or infamous, depending on how you like. So I want to thank our African American Student Achievement Team for bringing families together to learn about how our district is eager to continue to work in partnership with families to ensure their children have the school experience and support all children deserve, but is often lacking for Black students in our district and districts across the nation. And that was the Black Family Expo 2 weeks ago. I think 2 weeks. I am hopeful for the impact local African American parent advisory councils will have, allowing opportunities for families of Black children to connect, realize there are so many shared experiences, good and bad, and mobilize to hold their school sites accountable, to hold our district accountable, including all of us in this room, for the success of Black students. I had the utmost privilege of briefly addressing the audience at the Black Family Expo, so thank you for your accolade. It truly was, it is a privilege to get to address folks in our districts. But in my words, I focused on how important it is that Black students are able to show up each day as their full selves, but at the same time that Black adults like myself navigate this world to make others comfortable. I specifically mentioned how Black men and boys have to constantly be aware so they don't come across as a threat, or how Black girls and women raise the timbre of our voices to not be automatically judged as angry when in other women and girls that's considered passionate. And we pass these lessons on to our Black children, not even necessarily purposefully, but they learn by observation, and they learn how those actions are meant to keep themselves safe. But I personally, as well as many others I know, have been on an intentional journey at the very least since 2020, for me, it was a few years before that, to stop doing that, to stop changing ourselves for the comfort of others. In my time as an elected board member, I've been able to provide a never before heard perspective to this board. I've spoken and written words that made a certain demographic uncomfortable. I've been told to be humble. I've shocked many people, and someone now with my words because they would not expect them from an elected official. So I would like to reintroduce myself so people know exactly who I am. My name is Kaisha Latanyu Nzewi, née Tyler, the only child of Charlene and mother to an MTUSD high school student. Charlene would have me be no one other than who I am. So number one, I don't play respectability politics. I'm not here to impress. I'm not here to ensure folks feel comfortable. Even this awful Supreme Court that we live under today decided earlier this year that I have First Amendment rights as a school board member. So do you all. That means I don't have to be kind or even nice. Two, when white people feel the need to list their resume to prove to me they are anti-racist while simultaneously dismissing the voices of Black people, I have to be honest. I have concerns, I have doubts, because in my own work, in my day job, the white accomplices I get to work with don't feel the need to prove themselves. They don't talk about it, they just be about it. At the Black Family Expo, they read my bio aloud in introduction, and it was way too long, and honestly, I actually am humble, so it was kind of embarrassing. But I was so honored when an elder who I respect and admire for her lifelong work fighting for Black and other children came up to me and said, "Girl, I did not know you did all that." And that's because I'm not trying to impress, I'm trying to disrupt. And three, there are examples often in public comment and in our inboxes of adults in this district not being held accountable. We've had what seems like decades of culture of literally letting bygones be bygones, literally excusing racism. As the vice principal told me when I rolled up to my child's school after she was called the N-word, "Oh, you know how children learn this in music." I unapologetically will hold everyone in this district accountable, including us, including Dr. Clark, who has done the huge lift of also ensuring and working diligently with his team to hold all faculty and staff accountable for the environment, treatment, and achievement of Black students in our district. Because when we do that, every single child benefits. And sometimes I absolutely won't be nice about it, but always I'll be truthful. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Nzewi. The meetings that I usually go to weren't the last couple of weeks, and so next week, the CAC meeting, will be here. Well, there's the Parent Advisory Council meeting at Willow Creek, from 5:30 to 7, and then you can rush over to get here for 7 o'clock for the CAC meeting. I will be at those meetings, and I look forward to them. And that is all I have this evening. Dr. Clark?
Thank you all so much for your comments. I have a brief presentation. Keep me on track here. So, again, just looking at our LCAP goals about all students will receive a high quality education, again, in a safe and welcoming environment. That's every single classroom, in every single school, every office, and everywhere in this district. That is what the expectation is, and that is, I'm looking forward to continuing that work to ensure that that happens for each and every one of our students. Also, in goal 2, highly qualified, culturally proficient, and responsive staff will create a safe and engaging learning environment. And to go with some of the words that President Nzewi said, we do have students in this district who have certain stereotypes about them that live out. We as a district, part of our mandated trainings, we have a diversity, equity, and inclusion module this year that we're introducing. And it really talks about how to make everyone feel welcome in either a work environment or in a school environment. And so I'm glad that our teachers and administrators and support staff are participating in that, so that we truly can accept every student who walks through our doors and every parent who comes to our buildings for support. So always excited to continue that work. And then goal 3, families and community members will be informed and empowered as partners with the Mount Diablo Unified School District to support student learning and improve student outcomes. And that is truly why we are here, for student outcomes. we are reviewing our data from last year, our standardized testing data. And when our data appears, when it is okay to release, I will be sending it out to all of our families and making sure that all of our families have access to our data so that they can see how their students are doing in their classrooms. And I would encourage every parent who receives this to make an appointment with their student's teacher and administrator to find ways that their students can continue to be successful, or so that their students can learn some skills and techniques to get up to that area where the family desires. So I'm really looking forward to parent conferences, and I'm also looking forward to those informal conferences and relationships that happen with our families and our school staffs. Our focal scholars, again, the reason why we have this goal 4 is because these groups of students are historically not being academically successful within our school district. And so therefore, we are calling it out. We are not hiding it. We are not making excuses. We are not blaming, but we are setting it as a goal so that we as a collective group will continue to do the best we can, participate in trainings, participate in professional development, and use our professionalism and empathy to ensure that these students are getting what they truly deserve. And so just so we're clear, focal scholars, specifically African-American students, foster youth, students experiencing homelessness, students with IEPs, and multilingual students. Those are students who historically have not been meeting the mark that the state has set. So therefore, we are being extremely intentional in meeting their needs. And then lastly, again, we had Principal Lyon here earlier. What she's doing and what you saw tonight is leadership, right? It's engaging with students, engaging with families, engaging with the staff on saying, how can we make our school a place where students want to come to school? So when you see on that screen, students will demonstrate a 6% increase in attendance. You don't do this by setting up punitive ways or setting up ways to exclude students. You do this in ways of saying, students, how can we make this school better? How can we make this classroom more centered on your needs? So that is a perfect example of how we go about meeting goal 5. And we have the same goal for Crossroads, and we're looking forward to hearing similar things from Crossroads. That is our equity, opportunity, and unity triangle that we continue to display, and we continue to let this guide our actions. 9/11. Trustee Mayo touched on this. We did have flags at half staff today, and I remember as a young vice principal in my second year, before leaving for work, getting the news and then having to go to school, having to comfort staff, parents, and students. And not only that, wondering how my own family was going to be and my own relatives who were places. But the higher calling was in service to our schools and our students. And so although those students who I served at that time have all graduated and are moving on in their lives, we continue to share with our current students those tragic events that truly have changed how we live as Americans in this country. So it is something that we should all, that I clearly remember, and I know everyone in this room remembers, and we continue to honor that, that unfortunate day, those who were lost. So on that topic, I do want to, address the tragedy that took place in another part of the country, but we had yet again another school shooting. And whenever those school shootings happen, my inbox is flooded with questions and with concerns and with worried folks. Coincidentally, the week before the school shooting, we actually held Moms Demand Action, held an event at Northgate High School where we had the mayor of Walnut Creek, we had the police chief of Walnut Creek, we had myself, we had the principal of Northgate, and we had a social work specialist from Northgate, all talk about what we are doing collectively to, curb violence on our campuses and how we would respond to gun violence. one of the biggest things that was talked about that night was locking up firearms. Literally, if you have firearms, it's a constitutional right, but if they're in the home, if you have children, the firearms need to be locked up. In the event that that they aren't locked up and students do have access to firearms, we have systems within our schools to address that. And so that's what we spoke about at that particular event. And although it wasn't widely attended, the people who were there heard the message. So I thought I would just go over a couple of highlights of what we do in this district to ensure student safety. So first of all, I just have 11 here. I could have included much more, but I just took sort of the top 11, not in any particular order, clearly not in alphabetical order. But first of all, the board approves safety plans for each and every one of our schools. We have a safety plan that is posted on the website that everyone has access to. And then we also have a safety plan that is behind closed doors that has phone trees and specific information about roles and responsibilities in the case of any emergency that could show up in our district. So where we live, there could be fires, there could be earthquakes, and of course, violence and school shootings can happen. We take an approach of when you are working to curb active shooters or things of that nature, you can go with a concept of hardening your facilities. That's with gates and locks and bars and security guards and things of that nature. Or you can take another approach where you're focusing on the social emotional aspect of it. The large majority of school shootings that have happened, there have been signs and information that has come out beforehand. In the tragic events that just happened in our country recently, there were signs ahead of time that something could have happened. And although the school had two SROs on campus during the time, and they had all the safety measures in place, the student is from within, and that's where the majority of the shooting happens, from within the schools. So we have heavily invested in counselors, social workers, behaviorists, and others who can help work through the mental health aspect, anxiety that our students go through, each and every day. Social emotional learning curriculum is available and is taught in our classrooms. And I know our Medea president, Linda Ortega, supports this, and she supports her teachers in making sure that they are attending to the social emotional needs of their students in class. We also have invested in wellness centers in our secondary school. We have them in all of our high schools, and we're starting to get through our middle schools. So that's happening. We have cameras. We have gone through and updated our cameras throughout the district. Not only have we brought in security consultants to advise us on the placement of our cameras and where they can pick up the most people, or where we have spots where we have access points to our campus. They have helped us in determining where those places are, but we've also upgraded our cameras. We also have AI embedded in many of our cameras as well. So that's another way. We've done active shooter trainings for our administrators, for the staff, and for the community. This is over a couple-year period. So we've had all of our administrators, it was mandated that they go to active shooter training. We had police departments come out. Their active shooter team, their SWAT teams came out and trained all of our administrators. We then provided that same training for our community, for any parent, anyone who wanted to come. We held that over at Concord High. Then we held a series of trainings for our staff, where staff could go after school and attend those trainings. So that is happening. Our district covers 7 different cities. And so we have partnerships with local law enforcement agencies where we have direct relationships. Not only do I have relationships with the chiefs and with the command, but also they have relationships at our schools. And many of those police departments have officers that are designated and trained to respond to incidents that happen at schools. And many of our local law enforcement agencies use our school sites for trainings, that they utilize either on the weekends or the evenings, so that if there is a situation, that they know the layout of our schools, they know how to get through places. Oftentimes, there are threats and there are clear signs of potential danger online. And so we have online monitoring software, whether it's through our Chromebooks, whether it's through the Google sites that we have, or whether it is, it is other firewalls that we have around our technology. So if we have a student that is Googling how to bring about harm to our students or bring about harms to themselves, we have immediate alerts that that's happening. We have a whole process and protocol for dealing with that. We have anonymous tip lines that are online, where students can go online, or families or community members can go online and say, hey, this is what I saw, this is suspicious, this is something that's happening, you guys should look into that. That is also manned by people, so that if there is a potential immediate emergency, that we have someone who can then respond in one of those 7 law enforcement or fire agencies to provide support, and our administrators and district staff get those as well. We have fencing at many of our sites where we have areas either next to a park or next to areas where there's been crime or incidents in the past. And then, of course, we have our discipline code where we hold students accountable for threats, for weapons, for violence, for bullying, for things of that nature. So that's just 11 of our safety protocols, but really it's a collective effort that we all work through on ways that we can keep our students, our staff, and our community safe from violence at our schools. And so I feel I'm really passionate about this, and we have excellent staff out there that respond to all kinds of emergencies that involve our students and staff, and community members, whether it is a staff member having chest pains or whether it's a student going through a psychological episode, or whether it's bullying, or whether it's racist acts taking place on our campuses. We have excellent staff that are ready and willing to deal with those. Just to end on a light note, we have several IB schools in our district, and so I can't highlight all 55 schools right now. We'd be here all night, so I just picked IB and just have a couple of pictures there. On the left, you have Boy Elementary School, and those students are they all receive certificates for completing an IB task. That is actually, it's a big deal. They're not just like showed up and got a certificate. They actually had to do some work, even though they're extremely small. The other picture is at Oak Grove Middle School, and those are students who are learning some of the IB principles and doing work in their classes. And then this comes from our school next door. I don't have all the IB schools on there, but I just thought, if these are the things that are being taught in our schools, then give me more. Okay, these are rules for C4 class contract. So it's a contract that the class is made of, that all the students sign. So listen and be respectful when someone is talking or sharing. I was in an administrator meeting on Monday, and someone was presenting, and we actually had administrators who were talking while the person was presenting. So like, we have to live by this stuff ourselves. Not touch other people's things. Keep your hands, clean up after yourselves. Not run in the classroom. Pay attention to the teacher. Share. Always do your best. Be kind and never hurt anybody. Be helpful. Raise our hand before speaking, and use the bathroom during break. So if we can live by those, if our students can live by those, then like we can as well. And then just over in the left, it's about being open-minded. And I think, so much of the discourse in our that we're going through in our country that unfortunately seeps down into our schools is that there's this inability to be open-minded to people who are different, look different, from different cultures, different backgrounds, have different views, things like that. So I really like that handshake being there, it's being open-minded, and each of the students put their examples or pledges of being open-minded. So again, sorry I had to talk about school shootings and whatnot, but it is top of mind, but I also just wanted to finish that there's some wonderful things happening in our classrooms, and there's leadership that's taking place each and every day to serve our students and families. That concludes my report. If there's any questions that you have, answer.
I just want to say thank you, Dr. Clark, for all of your efforts in this area of safety. It's something that we've been working on really intensively for a number of years now. It's great to be able to see the progress that we've made. And I just appreciate the evidence-based practices that we're really focused on. So it's like you said, most of the time a violent incident that happens on our campus, somebody has told somebody about it ahead of time, right? And so the closer relationships that our adults and students have with each other on our campuses, that people feel comfortable saying something, this really makes all the difference. And so we're really investing in that in so many ways, as you said. And you know, hopefully people feel comfortable saying something to someone, but even when they don't, do have those anonymous tip lines. I did want to point out, just for like parents and community who might not be as familiar with that it is, if you go to mdusd.org and you scroll down to the very bottom, it says see something, say something, and that has all the information about how you can submit the tips, including that there is the 24/7 crisis counselor hotline where you can actually talk to a live person. So for people to know that we do have those resources in place, I think is really important. So thank you.
I have a question. Back to the testing. When the testing scores are released and families receive it, I'm like, oh, I haven't received that in a few years. I'm like, oh, we haven't taken the test in a few years because there's a gap there when you're a little older, but this is the year. But I wonder if, so I have a wondering, and then like, then it's a suggestion if we don't do this, if there's like, when families receive their CASP scores, if it's like, does not align with the grades that they receive in the classroom. Is there a way to communicate how and why that could happen and what that could mean or does mean to students?
I mean, that's a great question, and these are the conversations that I want families to have with their student's teacher and maybe the administrator. First of all, just knowing how to basically interpret what you're saying, right? And so someone to, explain to them, this is what you're saying, and there really should be a correlation between grades and what comes up on the test. There's a standard for being taught. Oftentimes, and we don't do this anymore in this district, but historically, students have been graded for so much more than just the academics, whether it's attendance or whether it's effort or things like that. So we really want to get down to learning what do students actually know on this particular day. One thing I will say about standardized testing is it's just a snapshot during a week of 180 day school year. What's taking place in the classroom is every day. So there really should be much more descriptive information that is collected daily by the teacher then that shows up on the standardized test. But again, using a 33% of the standardized test data, using 33% of the tests in class, and then using 33% of everything else that students do in class, that should give us a good, clear picture of our students' academic area and what they're being successful in and where they need some extra support in. So I would definitely encourage families to speak to their teacher and administrator about that.
Okay, so we move next to the consent agenda. So are there any items that we would like to pull for discussion? And if not, I'll take a motion.
I wanted to comment on a couple, but I don't have to pull them just to comment, correct? Okay. I just wanted to say on 14.6, which is to approve the adult ed course list. I continue to be impressed with how we are trying to meet the needs of all of our adults and children and offer a wide variety of things, some just for fun, and some for job training. So every year, Victoria over there seems to really kick it up, and I really appreciate that. And pretty much the same for 4.7, our CTEC program. We continually adapt to meet the needs of our kids. If we see our kids want training in a certain area, we do what we can to meet those needs. So I'm just pleased with that and wanted to highlight. And if no one wants me to pull anything, I'll go ahead and make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion by trustee Mason and the second by trustee Mayo. Trustee Ochoa, how do you vote?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0 with regards to our student board member. So we move to our business action items.
Yes, so we have Mr. Vargas, who's gonna be talking about our unaudited actuals. You know, one thing I wanna say about this is, you know, when I go to Pete's Coffee or Starbucks or something, like, I don't start like telling them or refill how to like make my coffee and things like that. They're professionals, so I really turn that over to them. And when it comes to school budgets and financing, it's probably one of the most complex and confusing things in the world. So as unaudited actors, sometimes it's just funny that like we're receiving like spreadsheets and things like that of like this work isn't easy. So we have two professionals here who are going to try to walk us through this very confusing and complex process. But clearly, if you all have questions, they're prepared to respond to those questions. But I know this is a more than gone through the training and everything, but I'm extremely excited. We are extremely lucky to have this level of professionalism as it comes to managing and allocating our close to $500 million budget. So without any further ado, Mr. Vargas.
Thank you, Dr. Clark. So we'll be going through the presentation for the 23-24 unaudited actuals, and with me today is Gustavo Aguilera. He's our new Executive Director of Fiscal Services. So if you remember, he started at the beginning of August, which was like the tail end of year-end close. So we just kind of threw him right into the fire. And I'm going to do that tonight too, because he's going to present about 4 or 5 slides with me. So I'm excited about that. So I'm not doing the entire presentation. And I hope that the PowerPoint isn't as complicated as maybe Dr. Clark may have stated in the opening. I think it's pretty straightforward. But again, Gustavo and I are here to answer any questions or clarify any information that we might have missed in the report. And I know it are all state generated forms. And that does look technical. So we do try to break it down in our PowerPoint. So year-end or unaudited actuals are the year-end financial documents, and they're required by the state superintendent of public instruction. It reflects the results of the operations for the year and the financial condition of the district as of June 30th, 2024. And as a reminder, the start of a fiscal year is July 1st. And again, it runs through June 30th. It also establishes the actual beginning fund balances for the current year, which is 24-25. Our adopted budget, that was just what we call estimated actuals. And again, we try to estimate that, and we're doing that work probably in about mid-May of what we think we may end up at June 30th. But again, those are estimated actuals. And today we'll be reporting out on what really happened, and we call them unaudited actuals just because they're not audited yet. And there's a slide in this PowerPoint that kind of talks about the audit and when it gets presented. And well, actually, the 4th bullet point, sorry. So that report is due in December, and so the auditors still have to review the actuals, and then we'll get that report. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Gustavo, and he's going to kind of take you through the actuals for 23-24.
Thank you, Adrian. Good evening, Board President, Board Trustee, Dr. Clark. Over the next few slides, I'll be going over the 2023-24 revenue and expenditures. In the general fund, it is anticipated to receive almost 500 million in revenue. Most of these funds come from the unrestricted funds. LCFF revenue accounts for roughly 68% of the total funding at 338.6 million. The federal revenue accounts for 9.5% of the total funding, that equals 47.4 million. The state revenue accounts for 17.2% of the total funding, that equals 86.2 million. The local revenue accounts for 5.4% of the total funding, that equals 27 million. These pie charts are a representation of the previous slides. Again, the unrestricted side, LCFF funds are the largest revenue contributor. On the restricted side, 34% of the federal funds, which are normally ELOP funding, title funding, in this case, ESSER funding, and some special education funds. 54% of the funds are state funds, which normally are the larger special education funds. After school ACES funds, Proposition 20 lottery funds, CTIG, equity multiplier, arts and music in schools, and 11% of the funds are local funds. In the general fund, there was a total of 477 million in expenditures. For the certificated salaries, there are 174.9 million in expenditures. For classified salaries, there are 64.2 million in expenses. The benefits for both certificated and classified employees are 127 million. For books and supplies, there are 24.8 million in expenses. For contracted services and other operating expenditures, there are 76.7 million. And those are usually operating utilities, insurance, communication, contracted services. For other capital outlay, there are 8.9 million in expenses. Other outgoing expenses are at 1 million. And indirect costs are the costs that support the general functioning of the districts to help ensure district services can be delivered effectively. The 815,000 is what is being charged to Fund 9, Fund 11, Fund 13. And on the next slide, pie charts exclude indirect costs for illustration purposes. On the unrestricted pie chart, you'll see that 88.7% accounts for salary and benefits, which is the 47.7 of certificated salaries, 13.5 of classified salaries, and 27.8 of benefits. On the restricted pie chart, 61% for salary and benefits, and 25.5% for contracted services and other operating expenses. In the 23-24, the general fund contributed and transferred out to a few programs. On the left, you'll see the contribution to special education, the RRM account, athletics, and the JROTC program. The overall contributions were 6.7 million less than estimated actuals. This was due to special ed expenses being transferred to the one-time ESSER funds. And on the right, you'll see that the transfer outs to other funds. There was a $5 million transfer to deferred maintenance and 55,000 to the cafeteria fund for meal reimbursements. The meal reimbursements is the second meal. California Universal Meals provide funding for one no-cost breakfast and one no-cost lunch. And any second meals need to be charged to the student accounts. So the district has funded these second meals, so we don't have to collect anything from the students and the families. And now I'll turn it over to Weaver to take care of the rest of the presentation.
Thank you, Gustavo. Are there any questions to this point? Okay, so I'm gonna go through the key differences from estimated actuals. So again, this is what we estimated when we did the adopted budget, or it was part of the adopted budget. So overall revenues on the unrestricted side was 3.3 million higher. That was due to other state and local revenues being 5.3 million more than we estimated, and that was offset by prior year adjustments in the LCFF funding of 2 million. Salaries and benefits were 2.3 million lower than projected. And that's primarily due to vacancy savings and not spending approximately 1.4 million in LCAP funds, which that could be part of the vacancies, but also just, not spending out time sheeted positions, or usually that's related to professional development. Books and supplies were 3 million lower than projected. That's because of some savings in our transportation budgets of 1 million, not spending 1.1 million in LCAP funds. The one thing I forgot to mention is that LCAP funds will carry over into the 24-25 year, because we are required to spend those on LCAP actions and services. And so lastly, contracted services and other operating expenses came in lower at 2.5 million, and most of that is related to LCAP funds being spent. So if you look at those particular categories that have the LCAP unspent funds, it's roughly about 5 million in unrestricted funds. And then lastly, our capital outlay was about 300,000 higher than projected. So moving on to the restricted resources. Our revenues were 12.4 million lower, primarily due to not spending our title program funds at 4.4 million, and then quite a few state restricted funds that are around 7.3 million. Total salaries and benefits were 4.5 million higher than projected. But again, that's primarily due to us moving 3 million in expenses to ESSER funds. And you will see when I talk about books and supplies in the next bullet point, that was 40 million higher. So generally speaking, when we have restricted budgets and we're building like carryover into these restricted programs, we use books and supplies as a placeholder, and then we cover the expenditures with that budget. And so from my perspective, we do have to get better at that in the budget department and making sure that we categorize our budgets to what we think we're going to spend in the categories of salaries, whether it's certificated, classified, and the associated benefits. And so we can see a lower swing in that, like, for example, that third bullet point of $40 million. But I can tell you that that 40 million probably should have been up in salaries, where it says that we missed it by 4.5. So we'll get better at that. But that's what happens in most often in our restricted funds. Contracted services and other operating expenses came in lower at 2.6 million. And that's primarily not spending out funds in our expanded learning opportunities program, our title programs, and educator effectiveness, and a lot of our local grants that we have. Finally, capital outlay was 3 million lower than projected. And again, it's kind of the same reason that we didn't spend out in our contracted services and supplies. So getting to the summary, the unrestricted ending fund balance as compared to estimated actuals increased
by 16.4 million. And that's because of the increased revenues and unspent expenditure budgets. And then also just the contribution being a lot lower than what we projected. And again, just to remind you, we did move allowable expenditures that mainly were related to social and emotional supports to our ESSER funds, so we could spend those down. So our ESSER funds are completely spent. We had a deadline as of September 30th, but we purposefully moved what we could so we could spend down all of those funds and not have that to worry about by September 30th. So that's what we did during the year-end close process. And then on the restricted side, our fund balance as compared to estimated actuals increased by almost 24 million. And again, it's a lot related to what I just talked about in the previous slide of all of those unspent budgets. And then just another note, all our other funds have positive fund balances. And that would be like our child nutrition fund, our adult ed fund, our capital facility funds. Those are the ones I can think off the top of my head, but all of them ended with a positive balance. So moving on to the next slide, this just kind of highlights some of our biggest programs. Of course, our biggest program is special ed outside of what we do for general staffing. I don't have special ed here, but it is over 100 million that we spent on special ed, our special ed programs. But as you can see, we spend almost 30 million in LCAP actions and services. Almost 13 million in transportation. Again, ESSER, we spent a little over 29 million and that's fully expensed. We spent 8.6 million in our arts, music, and discretionary block grant, which we have roughly about 8.5 million left to spend. And again, this is one-time funding. And then 7.7 million in our title programs, and then 6.2 million in our emergency learning recovery block grant, which is another one-time fund. And we have approximately 19.4 million left in that one-time funding source. And as of right now, we're currently budgeting about 10.3 million in 24-25 related to the emergency learning recovery block grant. So with all of that said and done, we already had a discussion about our fund balance. And so this kind of highlights the unrestricted multi-year projections. So this is basically taking the multi-year projections that we presented with the adopted budget and flowing through the unrestricted fund balance, which is approximately 118.7 million. And as you can see, when you go through the multi-year for the unrestricted fund balance, it drops considerably. But that was the whole intent of what we were planning to do when we signed off on the 9% salary increase for 24-25, as well as extending the Kaiser full rate through December of 2025. You know, the term we used last year was the planned deficit study. So we have large deficits, but we knew that that was coming, and that was presented again in the adopted budget. But this is kind of highlights that we have this fund balance and how it's going in the multi-year. So moving on to the next slide, that basically highlights the combined ending fund balance. And there you see that in 24-25, that's the number that was discussed earlier today. So that's the 199, 975, and $989, so almost $200 million fund balance. But again, that's combined, and we're projected to deficit spend almost 46 million in the current year, 34 million next year, and almost 33 million in the third year of our multi-year. And again, this just kind of highlights just, you know, the effect of deficit spending and what it is doing to our fund balance. Overall, our fund balance did increase by $24 million. The one thing I will remind everyone is that we were expecting a almost 4% COLA for 24-25. We got a little bit over 1% in COLA for 24-25. And I think I had numbers at second interim and the adopted budget of like what that impact is. So I did it again before tonight's meeting, and just that change in COLA, Mount Diablo lost basically 9.8 million on average of 3 years, which totals roughly over $29 million. So going up 24 million kind of mitigates that loss, but again, things do change when we come here at first interim. Our picture will look completely different because we'll have new numbers on enrollment, we'll have new numbers on the duplicate account, and then also we'll have some kind of guidance that the state will give us on how to present our first interim, which usually comes through the so with that, again, future considerations and risks, we look at the declining enrollment, like, is that happening? Our budget is built on flat enrollment. And then most importantly, the student attendance rates, we've talked about that before, and like the impact of going up 0.5% or 1%. Of course, we would generate more revenue as we have more students come to school. The second one is the expiring and spending down of one-time funds. So we've spent our ESSER and we have basically 2 grants left that are of one-time nature that are pretty large that school districts received. So looking at that, and then of course cost increases for STIRS and PERS, health benefits, and then other operating costs. And again, what is the state economy doing and how is that going to impact us? I mean, we felt it this year with the COLA going to a little over 1% when we were being told a year ago that it was going to be almost 4%, but we've been able to figure out how to still support our schools. And we still are meeting our reserve and the 3rd year out. So lastly, this is the budget calendar timeline. So we're doing unaudited actuals today. We'll do the first interim report in December. Also, the audit report will go to the state in December. And then we move on to January, and then we start talking about 25, 26. We'll get the governor's January budget proposals. And then we start working on budget development. And then in March, we'll do the second report. So with that, I will take any questions, or Gustavo will answer any questions.
Okay, I'll jump in. I just wanted to note that school districts around us are not in such great positions quite often. One of the things that we have been aware of for some time was this thing called the ESSER cliff that school districts across the nation were going to face. We studied together, Trustee Azaria, about that specifically in our education finance course. And so we knew that was coming. I think a number of districts took the one-time funds and spent them on things that were not necessarily one-time things. And now they're having to do massive cuts and layoffs. And so I just really want to appreciate that we are not in that position today. I know so over the time that I've been on the board, we have had to make massive cuts and layoffs, and it's really, really not fun. So I appreciate that we are not in that place today of having to really make some very, very tough decisions. So I want to thank you for your diligence and for keeping us on track, and also for helping us to plan ahead. Like you said, the planned deficit spend down is how we figured out that we had enough funds to be able to give the 9% raise and the 100% benefits that we were able to offer. So I'm really glad that we were able to get to that place and be able to offer that to our employees. And I think if we continue to carefully manage these resources, especially in a time where the state funding is really, really not looking good. That we can move forward and continue to have control over our district as well. And I think that was it, just see. I think the one other thing that I wanted to ask was when there are specific funds, like the LCAP funds that end up being unspent. Can you talk a little bit about what are some of the reasons that that happened? You talked about vacancy rates. But I know some of it, I think, is connected to when we, as a district, we try to provide each local school site with control over funds as well, right? So does the district necessarily know how each school is doing in its spending mid-year?
So, I think part of the reason for the unspent funds, and I just thought of this when we had the large carryover last year, we actually doubled the amount of money that was going per student to school sites. So it's kind of like what happened to school districts with ESSER funds. Like you got all of this one-time money, now you're being asked to spend it. And so you're trying to spend it, and then you're trying to hire people, or you're trying to do things in a, I would say, professional development manner. So you're trying to hire contractors, and then we'll have subs that go along with that. So you'll spend, time sheeted type of expenditures. So I think it's just the influx of that, but also kind of what you just brought up in terms of the communication that, I would say from the fiscal side and meeting with sites and departments to make sure they're on track to spend their dollars. We need to do a better job of that. And I feel like, we have Gustavo here who just started about a month ago, and he's already talking about, the outreach that needs to happen. And when you do have that outreach, then I think you mitigate some of the swings that we see at your end. And that only happens when you communicate with school system departments. And then you can figure out what the need is, and if they're short, then what can you use at the central level to support whatever a school site may be short with. Because, every school need is different. I'm sure that every school year is not the same, and students are not the same, so. We just got to learn how to adjust better. Again, the only way you can do that is to communicate.
And then we also have a kind of, one of the things that we've been trying to do is upgrade all of our systems. We've updated our curriculum, we've updated our technology in many ways. But I know one of the hardest things to update is the underlying systems like our financial software that runs all of that. When we're able to update that, do you see that as something that might be able to help in this area as well?
For me, I believe it'll create more efficiencies, because I think that's also what bogs us down in fiscal services, is that we do have a lot of manual processes. We have a lot of steps that I'm not used to seeing in my different experiences. So I feel like if we were to move off of the current system, that we would see some efficiencies. How and exactly what that looks like, I really don't know, other than I just know in some certain areas, like it will speed up things, it will build the morale of what is going on in fiscal service with the amount of work that we do here with our current system.
Thank you. I know that's easier said than done, and that's why it hasn't happened completely yet. But it is something that I am looking forward to getting to the other side of eventually here. Right. Let's see. Thank you.
Just thank you for the comprehensive report. We appreciate it.
I move that we approve the certification of the Mount Diablo Unified School District's 23-24 unaudited actuals financial reports.
I'll second that. Motion by trustee Nzeri and a second by trustee Mason. Trustee Ochoa, how do you vote?
Yes.
The motion passes 5-0 with concurrence from our student board member. And then Mr. Vargas and Mr. Will you presenting next plans too?
Want me to go? So what we have before you is the review and a potential approval of resolution 24/25-9. Basically adopting the appropriations limit calculation, so this is a requirement that needs to happen before September 15th. It's always part of year-end closing or unaudited actuals. I would like to take credit for doing all the work, but actually it's in the state software and it takes all of our numbers and it spits out the GAN form is what it's called. So if you were to ask me how to do all those, I say I can show you the system.
I move that we approve resolution 24/25-9, adopting the 2023-24 appropriation limit calculation for the GAN limit.
Second.
Motion by trustee Mason and a second by trustee Mayo. Trustee Ochoa, how do you vote?
Yes.
The motion passes 5-0 with congrats to our student board member.
So this resolution actually is probably gonna be the last time we do this, but I just kept it up here just because we've been doing it for the last few years because it was a requirement. But Governor Newsom withdrew enough money out of the rainy day fund that now districts aren't required to do this commitment resolution. But basically, it just outlines our fund balance and what it is gonna be committed to. And as you can see in the resolution, the majority of it is to the deficit spends in the out years. And then LCAP carry. Again, I have it on here as a more of, because we've been doing this and just part of the process. So it is not required moving forward, but we will see what happens over here.
In other words, there's no harm if we do it.
Correct.
Well, I'll move that we approve resolution 24/25-10 designating certain general funds as committed fund balance.
Second. Motion by Mayo and second by trustee Nzewi. Trustee Ochoa, how do you vote?
Yes.
The motion passes 5-0 with congrats to our student board member. Thank you. So we move to 17.4. This was originally presented when we reviewed it at our August 14th meeting. Review changes to board policies and administrative regulations for California School Board Association recommendations, December 2023 quarterly updates. This is an action item.
I move that we approve changes to board policy 0520 as presented.
Second. Motion by trustee Nzewi and a second by trustee Count. Trustee Ochoa, how do you vote?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0 with congrats to our student board member. So we move to 17.5. This is an information item tonight. Review of changes to board policies and administrative regulations per California School Board Association recommendations, June 2024 quarterly update. So this is open for discussion, comments, anything like that. Come back to future meeting. Seeing none. That's all of our items this evening, so I will adjourn this meeting.
Excuse me.
I'm sorry. Sometimes I miss things, yes.
Under the item, future board meetings, thank you. Looking for it on the printed agenda because I had to put my notes in a different spot. I would like to request that we put on the agenda for a future meeting and sooner than later, a board resolution in support of Proposition 2, which is a school bond that would provide $10 billion for K-12 educational facilities. This will be on the November general ballot, and it will fund new construction, modernization of existing facilities, and much needed improvements such as STEM, career technical education, and other facilities. K-12 education would receive 8.5 billion, and community colleges would receive 1.5 billion. Whether or not we are eligible for any of these funds, I think it's important that we put our voice out there and show that we support these, and the funds are important for districts, and it may help another district in securing funding for some for facilities they need.
Thank you, trustee Mayo. I'm glad I hesitated on the gavel. And at this point, I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you.